So yes, as you can see, we've got our presenters here today who are Dr. Shamas Mohammed and Dr. Fionn Hargood. And they are going to be talking about identifying sort of hidden productivity loss in your firm. Because everybody's used to being busy. That just kind of goes with the territory of being an accountant, really. And I think being really busy has become kind of the norm, but it doesn't always necessarily mean that it's the most productive. Busyness is not the same as being productive. So there can be kind of hidden pressures that can be building that are ultimately going to affect your firm's sort of capacity, delivery, margins, and it can even kind of end up resulting in burnout or resignations of people on your team. And nobody wants that. So they're going to be showing you a way to spot those hidden sort of productivity losses and do something about it. So that should be great. We've also just had another couple of people saying in the chat box, VJ from Leicester. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, VJ. And we've also got Rose from sunny Nottingham. So everybody's being a little bit shy in the chat box today. Thanks, Rana. Hi, nice to see all of you smiling in this wonderful weather. Yes, it is. It's very warm at the moment in the UK, isn't it? Having another little heat wave. So yes, got to make the most of that, but stay cool and stay hydrated, everyone. Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to Shamas and Fionn to do their presentation. So hope everyone enjoys it, and I shall spotlight you. Actually, I should just turn off my camera and microphone, but I will be here in the background because if anyone has any questions, please do put them in the chat box because I'll be keeping an eye on that, and I shall kind of pop in and interject if anyone's got any questions, if that's okay. All right. Oh, hi, Derek from Warrington and Chris from Oxon. You can all advertise too, guys. That's not what we're here to do, but thanks very much. Okay, I shall hand it over now. So yeah, over to you guys. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. So hi everyone, I'm Dr. Fionn Hargood.
I'm Dr. Shamas Mohammed, yeah.
And yeah, we're really excited to be here with you all today. And we're going to be talking you through productivity under pressure and a few practical tips and tricks that you can use to spot it in your firm and in yourself and what to do about it as well. So just gonna share our screen so that you can see the presentation. If anybody can't see, please let us know. Okay, perfect.
That's great.
Amazing, thank you. So as I said, we're going to be looking at productivity under pressure, so really focusing on how you can protect capacity and growth within your accounting firm and within yourself. And a few key takeaways. So 3 main questions that we're going to be answering and covering today is, number 1, why does your firm feel so busy but still struggle with capacity, delivery and margins? Second question that we'll be covering is, where should we actually act first when pressure is coming from so many different sources? It can be really hard to focus on just one thing to take away. And the final question is, how can we actually improve productivity without increasing headcount or changing team structure? So
so pressure is huge in the accounting industry, and there's been multiple studies and surveys done. So in 2024, 𝐃𝐨𝐧'𝐭 did a study, and that showed that 74% of accountants reported symptoms of burnout. And unfortunately, that figure has now risen to 86% with TaxCalc's new study in 2026. So it's a huge problem, and something that a lot of you in this room and a lot of your colleagues will have experienced. And unfortunately enough, it seems to have become quite normalized in the profession, with 41% of accountants believing that to be the case. So this is something that's really big and is getting bigger. So let's try and tackle it together.
So it's a really interesting report done by the ACCA. So they do an annual global workforce trend report every year. and it raised some really interesting statistics this year. So mental health in general has plateaued. So the overall level this year is at 54%, up from 52% last year. But interestingly, when we break it down into different generations, you can see that there is quite a discrepancy between the different ages of the workforce and how much mental health support that they're wanting from their employer as well. So the main sort of generation is Gen Zs, with 66% of Gen Z wanting more mental health support from their employer. And actually, it's showing that this is one of the biggest sort of factors of flight risk as well, from leaving their current organisations and looking either for internal change in roles, or a lot of them are actually looking at external roles in different organisations as well. So it's quite a big thing that not only affects productivity when you're in the role, but can also affect attrition risks as well. So why are people actually leaving? Why is there such a big attrition risk in the profession at the moment? So these were the main things, again, identified in the Global Workforce Trend Report. So one of the biggest was job insecurity, and that was coming from multiple angles. So AI is obviously a huge thing that's come into the industry in the past few years, and there are a lot of worries about how that's going to affect job security. A lot of people are seeing it as a positive thing in terms of reducing workload and helping speed processes up. But at the same time, there's also concerns about how it can affect training and progression, and keeping up with the trends in AI and in tech in general. I think everyone's worrying about sort of the governance risks as well with AI, and employers can really struggle to put governance frameworks in place to help employees as well, especially when we're thinking about confidential client data and how to keep that safe as well. So that can put a lot of pressure on the role. Another thing is low workplace engagement as well. Again, looking at sort of the current working patterns, with a lot of people working either remotely or in hybrid roles. Some of the worries are coming from less in-person engagement and less team cohesion as well. Again, probably affecting the sort of bigger organisations more than the smaller ones. But as a whole, the sort of tech side of multiple emails coming in every day, but not actually having that back and forth and that learning opportunity, can really affect team cohesion and engagement with tasks. As we touched on, a lack of support for mental health and well-being is something that, looking at the report, people in all role levels, from apprentices all the way up to partners, are worried that their organisation aren't offering enough for their employees. And if they are offering it, people aren't always sure of how to access it. And again, there's a lot of stigma as well about seeking help and seeking support when there are issues. And then looking at the next one, another concern that was raised was the lack of opportunity in skills development. And again, I think it's more the sort of transparency and clear ascension pathways that people are struggling with more, and just having that extra transparency about what the opportunities are, and that opportunities are being offered on merit as opposed to anything else, can go a long way in helping employees feel more engaged and motivated, and is a really big factor in them staying in their current roles and in their current organisation, if there are clear pathways in place.
Fionn, can I just ask? Well, I've got a comment here from one of the attendees, from Rana.
Yeah, perfect.
Just saying about one of the hidden reasons for stress nowadays in the accountancy sector is that very small fees charged by unqualified accountants that put pressure and stress to accommodate all business expenses. So you need a lot of clients because there's a fee pressure, and the workload's increased, but it's making less profit to cover the costs and stuff like that. So that's another reason for a lot of stress in the profession, which I think is true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point, Rana. I think the job market's changed so much over the recent years, and I think especially with sort of some software offering all-in-one sort of accounting, bookkeeping, I think that kind of plays into it as well and really undercuts the fees that sort of qualified accountants are charging as well. So there's definitely a lot of stress coming from that angle. And I think people coming with sort of ChatGPT has told me, oh, I can claim back for this, when it's not always accurate, and then yourself as accountant sort of getting the brunt of it as well. So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
I mean, there's a whole other webinar on that, isn't there, as well?
Yeah, definitely.
So Rakesh, also, you have your hand raised. If you do have a question that you'd like to ask, please do pop it in the chat box, and then we can ask that for you. Okay, I'll let you get on with it.
No problem, thank you. So this slide, just to clarify, is looking at more why people leave their current organisations to go externally, or sometimes leaving the profession altogether. But yeah, definitely stress in general is affecting with the client side of things as well, which we'll come on to. And yeah, finally, just covering on this slide is the level of pay for the amount of work that you guys are doing as well. Again, is a big factor in why people are looking to go elsewhere. That is quite an interesting one, because there are actually some other studies that say people are more willing to take pay cuts if there is better sort of well-being and less pressure within roles as well. So yeah, that's quite an interesting stat to think about.
And when we think about this in terms of more commercial terms, the cost of hidden productivity loss is huge. To general UK employees, it's running up at about £85 billion per year. And a good chunk of that is what's traditionally more easily to be seen when people are off sick. But there's a huge chunk of 21 billion that is lost to presenteeism. So that's when people are still showing up to work, but they aren't as productive as they could be. And that's much harder to see, but it represents a huge amount of lost potential that's costing firms and employers.
So in terms of when we look at productivity and what actually is the definition of productivity, I think, again, that's where the kind of feeling busy versus actually having useful, efficient workload and output comes into it. So the sort of formal definition of productivity is output divided by input. So in an accounting example, inputs would be things like the people within your firm, the amount of time that you have, the systems that you have in place and how streamlined and usable they are, and then client information, again, thinking about the sort of clients coming in and how responsive they are is obviously going to be a huge factor in how well you can do the outputs. And outputs are obviously sort of completing accounts, returns, any payrolls, and making those judgment calls, decisions and reviews as well. So there really needs to be a balance between how much input there is and versus how much output. And again, going back to your point, Rana, if there's a lot of stress in terms of clients looking at other cheaper alternatives, that can affect your input, which is obviously going to affect your output as well. So just to give sort of an overall look at how we can think about it. It's more of a process rather than just an end result. Similarly, when we think about capacity, generally, I think we think about capacity in terms of how much space there is in your diary. But actually, there's, again, a lot of different things that can factor into how much capacity you have, both as an individual and as a team and as a firm as well. So a really good analogy is thinking about capacity as a cup. So if you have a litre cup, you're going to be able to fill it with a litre of water before it spills over, versus if you've got a smaller cup of half a litre, you can only fill it with 500 mils before it spills over and you get a mess that you have to clean up. So again, balancing capacity is really important when you're thinking about how your workload is coming in, and that flow and sort of productivity process comes about. Because when the workload demand exceeds capacity, that's when pressure spills over into delivery risk, and deadlines might get missed, and there might be delays. You might end up having to work longer hours, and also errors and accuracy can decrease as well. So it's all about sort of managing that on a personal level and also across teams and across the firm as well. And we'll chat a little bit more about how we can do that.
So this pressure is really affected by the workload, but also by any friction points. So these friction points can come in multiple different forms. You know, as you mentioned, Rana, it can be outward facing and more things to do with client demands, or they can be internal systems or workflows, and they can even be kind of more human factors like recovery. So there's really a few different friction points that can affect pressure and then go on to affect capacity. So let's dive into that relationship a little bit more. So this is the graph that links pressure and performance or productivity. So there's quite a lot of research into this. And if we just talk through the graph, so on the left-hand side, where there's not very much pressure at all, performance or productivity is also quite low. So in this instance, people would be quite disengaged, and they're not really motivated to do their best work. So this isn't a great place to be. And as pressure starts to increase, we enter this the light green zone, and productivity does start to increase. But at this point, people are still kind of just coasting along, and they're not quite at the peak performance level. Now, in the middle of the graph, this is the point where there's an optimal amount of pressure that allows for peak performance. So this is where we want individuals to be, and this is where we want firms and organizations to be as a whole. Issue comes when, or if, pressure increases slightly further and we enter this orange strain zone. So what's happening here is the amount of pressure is causing people to overcompensate and overwork to keep up with internal deadlines and KPIs. So firms don't quite see an issue yet because deadlines are still being met, but that's because people are taking the pressure on themselves, you know, sacrificing recovery time with friends and family, working longer hours, which in and of itself pushes people further towards the end of the graph in the red zone. And that's where the collapse zone sits. So that's where people can no longer overcompensate to keep up with demands. And even further, that's when people will need to seek medical help for time off work, and that's where the end point of burnout is. So the point where firms can traditionally see with an issue where KPIs start to get affected, and the point where peak productivity would be, that's kind of the hidden productivity loss. That is what we've been referencing, and what is so important to keep firms and their people at a safe and sustainable level whilst being as productive as they can be. So pressure, where does this usually show up? So there's a few areas, and we're going to dive into these in a little bit more detail. And what I want you to do when we're going through these areas is have a think how you and your team, if you have a team or the rest of your firm, fares. And at the end of these 5 areas, we'll have a little scorecard as something for you to take away and have a think about where we can best implement an intervention and get the most impact for you.
So when we're thinking about how we tackle these pressure areas and putting all of the sort of capacity, productivity, learning behind it, we like to think of it in a capacity pressure framework. So there's 4 main things to have a think about. And again, just trying to simplify it as much as possible can be really helpful, because when there's a lot of different things that you're trying to keep on top of, it's easy to get lost in the weeds. So taking a step back, having a clear framework can be really helpful to just stay on top of it and having an outside perspective. So the first thing that we look at is actually spotting and identifying the pressure. So which area is there the biggest demand or friction building? And that's the area that you want to tackle first. So don't try and tackle lots of different things all at once. Try and identify the biggest bottleneck and focus on that and getting on top of that before thinking about moving on to any other potential focus areas. The second thing that we want to do is actually locate the leak. So you might be spotting that there's some pressure, but you're not quite sure of where the friction point is. So you need to sort of look at where is the usable capacity being lost. So thinking back to the cup, where is that input coming in and pushing the pressure levels up onto the team or yourself as an individual? And that's what you want to be looking at. A good way to think about it is actually scoring the risk. So you can use a green, amber or red system. Again, just keeping everything really simple. We'll talk about sort of how you can sort of break it into those categories in a later slide. But again, just having a little bit of data, if you can pull together data points, that's really helpful. But otherwise, sort of scoring it based on sort of the team's feelings of the pressure source can be good when you're prioritizing what to act on. And finally, the 4th thing to think about in the framework is actually acting on what you're doing. So not just identifying it, but actually taking practical steps. Can be big or small, but just trying to improve that pressure area will help people be a lot more productive and less stressed, which is always good. I know that we've sort of gone through quite a lot. Are there any questions or anything in the chat so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll pop up.
No worries.
Yes, we do have a question which probably relates to the pressure and productivity diagram that you just showed. So we've had a question from Stefania. I have a 19-year-old employee who is yawning all the time and looking at his personal phone all the time, and wanting to know if she should forbid the personal mobile phone. And I think the reason for that may be because he's in one part of this this graph that's not making him very productive.
Yeah. So oh, sorry, Don.
Yeah. So the way that I would say to think about that is trying to understand as best you can why it sounds like they aren't really engaged, and it sounds exactly as you're alluding to there on the left-hand side of the graph here. The key thing is figuring out why. So there could be a number of factors. So just as an example, they could be the type of person that is really looking for fast growth and really cares about the career and progression. And if they feel that they aren't getting that, then that could be a reason that they're disengaged. And similarly, on a completely different aspect, if they are the type of person, or if they're feeling like they couldn't come to leadership with any issues that they have, or if they're not feeling a sense of trust within the firm, that could be a reason why they're disengaged. And I mentioned these 2 things just as 2 examples of why people could be disengaged, because there's so many. So I wouldn't go straight to taking away their vice, in this example, their mobile phone, because if we don't fix the root cause, then they would just find something else. So I would really think about why it's the case for them in the firm, and how can we push them up the pressure curve so you can get more out of them for themselves, as well as for the rest of the team.
Great, thank you. Hope that's useful, Stefania. All right, thank you.
Amazing. Any other questions?
Yes, sorry, another follow-up. Okay, so I noticed that after 3 years working in accountancy, the employees start to be bored, to accumulate resentment. What changes should I make to make them interested again?
So yeah, again, exactly as Shanaz was saying, there could be a number of different factors. Is it the case where everybody after 3 years becomes bored, or is it more is it individuals, they reach the 3-year mark, or is it as a firm you've hit the 3-year mark and people are disengaged? I'd say if it's kind of at the 3-year mark, every individual who comes through your firm sort of starts to get bored at that level. It might be worth thinking about the sort of roles and responsibilities you're expecting from employees at that level, and whether there could be further opportunities to take on extra responsibilities, take some of the workload off their seniors, which obviously will be beneficial for the seniors, as well as giving the sort of employees at the 3-year mark a bit of extra pressure just to put them into the optimal performance zone. And I think, so as well as looking at sort of the workload, as Shanaz was saying, on an individual level, trying to have a chat with those employees and work out what are they actually really interested in, what is their sort of purpose, why did they pick accounting, what are they most interested in, because everyone's going to have different strengths and different weaknesses, and some people might be really interested in the management side of managing people and helping their fellow colleagues advance and support them, whereas other people will just be a lot more interested in the day-to-day job and getting the tasks done, and not interested in managing people at all. So that's kind of one example of how people are different and will have different motivators. So yeah, if you're able to really having those conversations as a starting point, I think would be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Great, thank you very much.
Perfect, no problem.
No more questions as of now.
Amazing. Perfect. So yeah, so just going onto the first worked example of how we can use this capacity pressure framework. So thinking about the client information coming in, I'm sure a lot of you will relate to the struggle of clients sending incomplete records, or you having to spend a lot of time chasing them to get everything so that you can actually do your tasks and your roles. So signs where capacity and pressure could be building, and again, this applies individually and as an organisation. Are you having to repeatedly chase either certain clients or types of clients? Are there frequently missing records or incomplete records? And looking at sort of the communication as well. Are you hitting a lot of friction when you're getting responses from clients? Is it a pattern, or is it just one or two? And all of this can have a knock-on effect to pressure building, everybody sending in all of their invoices last minute before the self-assessment deadline, for example, and that causing a huge bottleneck and that sort of busy season stress, where you then have to work longer hours, and it affects all of the work downstream as well. So keeping an eye on that and seeing if there are any patterns, or if it is just one or two clients that you need to have a conversation with, is useful in terms of spotting the pressure. In terms of how you can actually, once you've located the leak, how you can actually act to improve that, is having clear client cut-off dates. So you can either incentivize them by charging different fees depending on how soon before the deadlines they submit all of their invoices and their work. Or you can do things like having standard request templates, so it takes a lot of time away from manually chasing clients to having these templates either ready to send as and when you need to, or to have it on an automated request template frequency if they've not sent invoices in, and really trying to put in triage systems to make sure that everything you need you ask for on the first meeting, so that clients are aware. Obviously it doesn't always help depending on the client, but the more sort of clear communication and clear sort of checklists that you can provide just makes everything so much easier for both yourselves and the clients as well. And finally, having sort of escalation rules for late clients as well, and thinking about more junior colleagues, at what point do they escalate it, and what are the consequences, if any, for those clients, if it is certain ones that are always causing the backflows.
So yeah, the next pressure area is review capacity. So I'm sure you can all imagine a scenario where there's a few managers managing lots of reviews from their juniors, and they become the bottleneck. Queues start to build, the juniors below them are waiting for sign-off, so they can't progress with other tasks. And essentially this is the sort of scenario where we get that manager level at really high levels of pressure, and yeah, it's really difficult to try and overcome that. The best way to do that, to try and smooth out these review processes, is to create blocks and time ring-fence time areas, so that these reviews can get done in a more orderly manner. So if you imagine from the manager's point of view, if they're in the middle of reviewing a piece of work and they keep getting asked questions from the juniors every couple of minutes, it's really hard for them to stay productive and keep on task. There's some research done, and on average it can take up to 20 minutes for someone to go from doing some deep focus work. If they get distracted, it can take 20 minutes for them to get back in the zone. So these repeated interruptions can really slow down these reviews. Trying to systemize and checklist these reviews as far as possible is really helpful to take the pressure off, as well as incentivizing and encouraging the juniors to look over their own work with these frameworks. It helps their own learning and their processes, so when they do eventually get to that manager level, they have more of an internal checklist of things that they're looking through, and that will help them streamline their process when they do get to that level. And really having really clear rules for the juniors that they can follow, so they understand what they're doing, but more importantly, why they're doing it. Because if you can get them to the point where they understand what they're doing, why, when they should do certain things, then they're going to be able to train much quicker and get to that level where they're not as reliant on their managers and eventually the directors and partners above them when they do get promoted through the firm. And it just makes things much more slick and efficient.
Perfect. And then another area that can commonly arise is decision bottlenecks. So similar to sort of manager capacity, but looking more at the sort of partner senior level and the decision time here. So it might be that there's a bottleneck of work waiting for partner sign off, or that issues which might not necessarily need a partner sign off are escalated, and that takes up a lot of time, and also can lead to a lot of decision fatigue for partners as well, if their mental capacity is taken up by trying to wade through more routine things. And that's something that then can have a knock-on effect by feeling fatigued, leading to burnout when you're trying to meet deadlines, and just getting exhausted because there's so much to do. So again, once the kind of specific area is identified, some of the things that you can do is looking at having clear decision rights by role, obviously with the caveat that people can escalate if they feel they need to, but empowering your employees to try and take responsibility and find the information that they need to make those decisions themselves, if appropriate. And that also helps, speaking about the motivation that we touched on earlier, that helps them have that right amount of pressure to stay in the optimal productivity zone as well, because they're being appropriately challenged. Again, if you can have sort of set approval thresholds for certain tasks, and different escalation categories, anything to systemize and have clear processes and guidelines that people can refer back to, and that doesn't just live in a folder somewhere on the shared desktop, is really, really useful. And if there are any sort of recurring escalations that might should have been routine, then trying to review those monthly, and again sort of blocking that time to clear the deck, so to speak, can be really useful and prevent that sort of daily decision fatigue that I think a lot of leaders struggle with.
So the next pressure area that you should think about is internal systems and workflows themselves. I'm sure you all have experienced having to enter the same information multiple different times on different systems and for different people. And not only is that quite time consuming, but it really increases the error percentage and the likelihood of transcription errors. So that's really something that we want to try and avoid as far as possible. And having chunks of time or workflows where you're not really sure where the next step or the next stage should be, especially for more junior members of staff, that can really create a friction point where, just like you mentioned, where someone may just sit on their phone and scroll through because they're not really sure what to do next. So the easiest thing to do is to just distract themselves and forget about it. And if you have any particular workflows that is passed down from level to level below them as they're training them up, this is the way that it should be done on paper, but actually we need to do this, and this doesn't really work. That printer doesn't work if you're printing things. Then these workarounds becoming an inherent part of the system can really be a huge friction point. So ways to get around all of this is to have one source of truth. So if you haven't already, building out SOPs, so standard operating procedures. Not only is that good for uniformity across the firm and the team, but when you do have any change of members of staff, if you're bringing someone else on, it's so much easier to get them up to speed if there's a kind of a Bible for them to work through, and they know exactly what to do and when. And within that, you can explain exactly why they're doing certain things to really ramp up their understanding, their productivity, to get them towards a managerial level sooner rather than later, especially with AI and different software tools coming in and replacing those lower entry job roles. We want to remove duplicate entries as far as possible. So how can we have our systems talking to each other and different people in different departments talking to each other, so we really remove that retranscription task and that error risk. And standardizing all of these workflows can be really useful when we're reducing these bottlenecks and pressure points.
And finally, again, a really big area that we look at and that comes up time and time again is protecting focus and recovery time as well. Sounds really simple, and sometimes I think can be dismissed as wishy-washy or not really relevant, and people just want to get through their work. But having proper focus and recovery time actually really boosts your productivity compared to working through and getting fatigued. So signs that focus and recovery are the biggest sort of pressure area in your firm could be long hours normalized. So in accounting, obviously it's expected that there will be long hours here and there, especially around busy season. But if this is something that is very standard and people frequently stay past the time that they should be leaving at the end of their normal working day, that's a sign that they're not having enough recovery, and they're in that strain portion of the graph where they're needing to overcompensate to meet deadlines. It could look like people using weekends and evenings to catch up on work, and it can be things like frequent interruptions, as we previously mentioned, and not having those deep focus periods where you can get on with complex tasks. And again, thinking about busy seasons, if there's not a reset period after a lot of deadlines and a busy season, then that can really contribute to ongoing exhaustion, lack of productivity, and eventually burnout as well. So in terms of things to do to protect your focus and recovery, is having chunks of focus blocks for complex work. So a lot of people find that first thing in the morning is the most useful time for them to put these blocks in. And that means trying to minimize emails and interruptions as much as possible, and just letting your team know or your clients know that unless it's something that's really urgent, you're going to protect those first 90 minutes, for example, of your day, and just try and get through the most difficult, off-putting task first, because that's when your concentration levels are going to be highest. Some people might find that they focus better in the afternoon. So again, they might want to put meetings and catching up with emails in the morning and protecting deep focus time at around 3 p.m. So it's about just working out what's best for you as an individual and thinking about it in a team setting. If you can have your employees having protected focus time, whether that's once a week, if that's what you're able to do in the sort of normal working week, then that can be really useful for people to just recharge and focus on their tasks. Again, thinking about whether there's an opportunity to reduce meetings and streamlining meetings if possible also means that time isn't taken up by not having that time to focus on tasks, and just having really short, focused, concise meetings can be really helpful. Also, having walking meetings can be really good for protecting your physical health and also your mental health if you're able to get out of the office. Walking meetings can work really well for one-to-ones, for example, if it's talking about training or KPIs with junior members of the team. That can be quite a good way to kill two birds with one stone, get a bit of movement into your day, having that sort of break from your screen, and also having that sort of focus on the meeting itself before coming back to your task. Again, thinking about internal communication norms as well. So is it frequent Slack messages that disrupt your focus throughout the day, or can you have set check-ins with team members, potentially first thing in the morning, just to set out the plans and aims for the day, or at lunchtime if they've built up questions throughout the morning. It means that they can save everything for those set times, and that reduces the decision fatigue and the breaks in concentration as well. And again, just planning recovery periods of complete time off after major deadlines or a busy week is also really really beneficial for your mental health as well.
So yeah, if we think about these 5 pressure areas, so as I mentioned, if you have a think in your head, just from your first instincts where you're doing well, and you can score yourself a green. Likewise, amber if you feel like there's a little bits of friction, need some attention. And then on the further end, if there's a real blocker of capacity, and you want to act first. So if we have a look here, I'll give you a second to have a think about where these different areas score for you, your team, and then we can think about some priorities and next steps. So I'll just give you a second here.
And in the meantime, if there's any questions, we can answer those as well.
Do you want anybody to put anything in the chat box about this, or just think about it themselves for their firm?
Yeah, if people are happy to share in the chat box, there's no pressure, but it might be quite nice to see for other people as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think focus and recovery is one that seems to get kind of, well, it's a necessity, it seems, in a lot of firms to not have time for focus and recovery, because as soon as one busy thing is finished, one deadline's met, there's another one coming along. A lot of people that I speak to, you know, I say, oh, are you having a busy time at the moment? And it's just like, it's always busy. There's always demands and pressure. And actually being able to take that time off for recovery can be really, really difficult. So yeah, it would be interesting to see if anyone's got any green scores in there for any of those areas, or any other scores in there. It'd just be really interesting. I know it takes a few minutes to put things into the chat box, but yeah, it'd be good to know.
And I think that's a really good point as well with recovery. I think people always think, oh, I'll get to the weekend and then I'll feel better. But then come back in on Monday and the same pressures are there and the same stress just comes right back. So yeah, if you can build recovery into your daily routine, ideally having set breaks and recovery time can really help preserve your energy and stop your cup from overspilling as well.
Okay, so no comments so far, but I'll let you know if anything comes in.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so yeah, just thinking about the last point in the capacity framework is, when should you actually act? At what point is this becoming a big problem? So if it happens really frequently and it's something that comes up time and time again, that's an indicator that you want to act quite quickly. If it's just once or twice, it might be something to think about in the future as a nice to have or an optimization area, but it's not something that's gonna that should demand your immediate attention. And then thinking about it from a commercial and cost point of view, if it's a process or pressure area that is contributing directly to either delays or rework or people needing to take time off, then again, that's an indicator that you want to be acting very quickly and resolving or improving as much as you're able to that area. And finally, thinking about what's actually going to be controllable and easy to implement, and is it going to be sustainable? Are you going to be able to continue this? Because if you throw a lot of resources and time and effort into the solution, but you're not able to keep on top of it, or you're using up all of your resources to actually be doing the rest of the workload, then that can cause more pressure and less productivity rather than fixing the solution. So trying to think of things in steps, and if it can be sustained over time is something that again might influence where you act first and how you act. And just using that sort of red, amber, green framework as well. If you do have data available, it might be that green is within sort of 1 or 2% of where you want to be. Amber might be less than 10% away from where you want to be, and red is over 10%. So again, you can use that to think about where you want to act.
Sorry to interrupt, we just had a question come
Yeah,
in.
of course.
Is this based on your experiences or based on research and statistics?
Yeah, so it's a combination. So we're both medical doctors working in hospitals previously. So this is things that we've used when we're prioritizing our workload, obviously slightly different from the accounting industry, but similar pressures and thinking about triaging. We do a lot of triaging in the NHS, and it's something that really helps when you've got that sort of data and triage system to prioritize instead of having lots of things in your head to think about. And then we've also done a lot of research as well in terms of the best approaches to implementing things as well. And I'm happy to if anyone wants to email me afterwards, I'm happy to send across a list of different resources. But the general consensus is putting in sort of system-wide organizational changes has a lot more impact than individuals having that sort of responsibility to seek support themselves. If you can actually change the environment, that's where you're going to be helping your employees the most and also saving the most financially as well in terms of ROI.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Perfect. So yeah, just a quick thing more about what we do. So that question actually ties in quite well. So we have a tool which essentially measures all of these different areas, and we categorize it into different strain types. So again, this might be something that people might want to think about in terms of categorizing where those pressure areas are coming from. So rate strain is obviously a huge thing in accounting. It's a very time pressured environment. So keeping up with the pace of work during a normal working day is something that can put a lot of pressure onto people. Mental strain, so thinking about decision fatigue and cognitive overload, again, really reduces productivity and your ability, judgment and decision making as well. Social strain, so thinking about it from the point of view of both your clients and your colleagues, and how that affects your productivity and your feelings of stress as well, is something to really think about. And then physical strain is something that gets overlooked a little bit when we're thinking about productivity, but actually if you're in a lot of discomfort and you maybe have some physical health issues which affect either your concentration or your ability to do your work, that can also affect your performance. So trying to take care of yourself as much as you can physically will really help both yourself and as an organisation, encouraging that helps protect the health of your employees. And then finally, thinking about that sort of output side of the graph, what are the things that are affecting the quantity of work produced, the standard, and the accuracy as well. So yeah, just another thing to think about.
I was just going to ask, could you also just explain briefly what 𝐬𝐮𝐬 is?
Sorry, so 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫 is the name of our company.
I realised I missed that bit out at the beginning.
Sorry.
Where you were from.
Yeah, sorry, we should have said that as well. So yeah, 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫 is our company, and diagnosing just at the bottom of the page there. So that's the tool. So it's based on presenteeism research, and it puts the sort of the data and insights into all of these different areas. So we're able to give percentages as opposed to just the sort of red, amber, green framework, essentially. Perfect. So yeah, we've just got our contact details at the end. So if you did want, we've got an ebook that for AVN members, if you email us with the subject line ebook, it covers the topics that we've discussed today, as well as a little bit more. So if anyone would find that useful, feel free to pop us a message. But yeah, that's the end of the presentation. If anyone's got any more questions, please let us know. I'll just stop sharing here.
I should say, I know it says on the screen, but yeah, the ebook's free. There's no charge. Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's brilliant. So yeah, if anybody does have any questions at this point, please do pop them into the chat box or in the Q&A. I have both of them open on my screen so I can see what's coming in there. Terence has commented, excellent articulation of the problem. I'm thinking of this in a client context. So actually helping to spot sort of productivity issues and pressure points for your clients as well. Is that what you mean, Terence? I think so. Oh, no problem. I can tell what you meant. So yeah, I got a thank you from VJ as well. Yeah, because it can be very difficult, can't it, when you're kind of stuck working, and then just removing your spotlight. and sometimes you don't notice those pressure points building up, or even if you do, it can be hard to kind of stop and actually discover, kind of uncover what's going on really, and just think of it as kind of like, oh, that's really annoying, but I'm too busy to actually do anything about it. So does what you do help with that side of things, actually taking some action and digging a bit deeper to find out what's going on?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we want to do and why we set it up, because we didn't want people to get to the burnout stage on an individual level, and we didn't want companies to get to that struggling stage where they only spot that there's a problem where KPIs show up, KPIs are missed, and people are needing to take time off work. So we on that sort of graph, we act at the tipping point between the optimal performance and the strain zone, so we can pick things up much earlier, so that teams have an overview of where to act and when to act as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I see that you put your details into the chat box, so if anybody does want to quickly copy the email address and the subject to put for the email to get the free book, do that quickly, because it's in the chat now. We will also include it in the follow-up email. We send a follow-up email to everyone after this webinar, so we will include those details in there so that people can get their book and get in touch. I was just I know we're nearly up to time, but what made you, because you're both obviously in the medical profession, what's made you kind of move into helping accountants?
Yeah, great question. It's something we get asked quite a lot. So we kept seeing patients at the end point of burnout, and at that point it's really too late to do anything about it. And at the same time, we have a load of friends and family in accounting, and they were all telling us the same thing. There was, so much pressure, the seasonal shifts, regulatory demands. And then when we looked into the research and the data, we saw the study from 𝐃𝐨𝐽 showing that 74% of accountants reported symptoms of burnout. So yeah, we really wanted to do something about it, specifically for accounting and the accounting industry.
I see. So yeah, spotted a problem and did something to help. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. So we've had lots of thank yous in the chat box. Do keep those coming in. I'd like to also say thank you very much. It's been a fantastic presentation. Really great to hear from you both. And also, as usual, thank you to everyone who's attended. It's always lovely to have you here, and we hope to see you on the next one. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.